Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour.
Hello again, everyone. After our 10-mile drive on Thursday, June 10th, Carol, Jasper, and I entered Rhode Island. Then we continued on for another 45 miles until we reached Greenville, a suburb of Providence, Rhode Island. Rhode Island is the 41st state that Carol and I have visited together. Measuring just 48 miles from north to south and 37 miles from east to west, Rhode Island is the smallest of the 50 U.S. states. Because of its size, we will only be in Rhode Island for 1 week. On Friday morning, Carol, Jasper, and I decided to drive 43 miles south to an area known as the Cliff Walk in Newport, Rhode Island. On the way to Newport, we crossed the 7,350-foot Jamestown Verrazano Bridge onto Conanicut Island, where Jamestown, Rhode Island is located. As we left Conanicut Island, we crossed the 11,248-foot Claiborne-Pell Newport Bridge to get to Newport. Newport is located on Aquidneck Island. Local historians suggest that the first established paths along the Rhode Island shoreline were made by Deer, then the Narragansett Indians, followed by colonists who harvested whatever they could find, including items salvaged from shipwreck. During the last half of the 1800s, the summer getaway for wealthy New Yorkers spread from the center of Newport's harbor area to this undeveloped coastal shoreline. The city was a center of Victorian extravagance and architectural and social competition of millionaires benefiting from the Industrial Revolution. Many of the great mansions built during this time were ideally located on the scenic overlook of the Rhode Island Sound and the Atlantic Ocean. Development of the Cliff Walk started about 1880, and the estate owners spent the next 50 years improving their section of the walk piece by piece. Over the last 150 years, the public and some of the wealthy estate owners have often clashed over access rights both along the shore and to the shore, but the public won out due to the Rhode Island law that refers to prior use, saying that prior use by people before the mansions were there guarantees the right of the people to walk along the cliff. To put the Cliff Walk in perspective, here is the paved sidewalk that goes along the shore of Rhode Island Sound. Here is a picture of the trail looking back to where we started, showing the condition and width of the trail. The Cliff Walk is 3.5 miles long. We walked approximately half of this, then noticed that Jasper was getting tired, so we turned around and walked back to the car. There was a cool breeze blowing off the ocean during the entire walk. Here is a picture of one of the mansions that we saw while walking along the cliff. Here I climbed down onto a flat area of rocks to get a better perspective of the cliff. This is another clip from the same area. And here are some random pictures that I took while walking along. This is another one of the mansions that we saw along the Cliff Walk. This is seaweed on the rocks below. Some landowners have added stone formations along the trail. On Saturday, June 12th, Carol and I visited the homestead of Revolutionary War General Nathaniel Greene in nearby Coventry, Rhode Island. This house was built by Nathaniel Greene in 1770 on property encompassing 2,000 acres and served as his family home throughout the Revolutionary War. The house is a 2.5-story wood frame structure with a gable roof, 2 interior chimneys, and a clapboard exterior. It follows a typical late Georgian center hall plan, with 4 rooms on each level, 2 on either side of the central hallway. On the lower level, the front right room housed Greene's 300-plus volume library, while the rear room served as the kitchen. The rooms on the left served as the parlor, and dining room. There are 4 bedrooms on the second floor, and the attic space was later also converted into a bedroom. In 1783, Green sold this house to his brother and moved his family to Newport, Rhode Island, before eventually relocating to Georgia, where he died in 1786. The house would remain in the Green family until 1899. Born into a prosperous Quaker family in Warwick, Rhode Island, Green became active in the colonial opposition to British revenue policies in the early 1770s and helped establish a state militia in Rhode Island. After the April 1775 battles of Lexington and Concord, the legislature of Rhode Island established an army and appointed Green to command it. He emerged from the war with a reputation as General George Washington's most talented and dependable officer. Later that year, Green became a general in the newly established Continental Army. Green served under George Washington in the Boston Campaign, the New York and New Jersey Campaign, and the Philadelphia Campaign before being appointed Quartermaster General of the Continental Army in 1778. In October 1780, George Washington appointed Green as the commander of the Continental Army in the Southern Theater. After taking command, Green engaged in a successful campaign of guerrilla warfare against the numerically superior forces of British General Charles Cornwallis. Green inflicted major losses on British forces at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, Battle of Hobkirk's Hill, and the Battle of Eustis Springs, eroding British control of the American South. Major fighting on land came to an end following George Washington's defeat of General Cornwallis at the Siege of Yorktown in October 1781. Green would continue to serve in the Continental Army until late 1783. In 1919, the Nathaniel Green Homestead Association was formed to restore and care for the property. The home was opened as a museum in 1924 and declared a National Historic Landmark in 1972. Furniture in the house was period-specific, but did not actually belong to the Green family. On Sunday, June 13th, Carol and I drove 35 miles to Kakashal Farm Museum in Colt State Park near Bristol, Rhode Island. Yes, we did cross into Massachusetts for a couple of minutes on the interstate, but then quickly returned to Rhode Island. This 18th century coastal tenant farm is located on 48 acres of land and features interpreters and authentic reenactments of farm life in the year 1799. In the early 19th century, Wilbur and Eliza Kakashal were tenant farmers at this farm. The farm later became part of the Colt estate. That's Colt as in Colt Firearms Company. In 1965, the state of Rhode Island purchased the Colt estate for use as a state park. The Bristol Historical Society then petitioned the state for permission to preserve the original farmhouse on the property as a museum. In 1968, the Bristol Historical Society signed a lease and constructed various outbuildings. Kakashal Farm Museum was established in 1973 to educate modern Americans about 18th century New England farm life. The day that Carol and I were at the museum was actually closed, but the on-site farm manager greeted us and allowed us to walk around looking at the buildings. One of the first things that we saw was a stone fence around the house. and having already seen several stone fences since arriving in Rhode Island, I asked the farm manager about them. She said that early farmers found many large stones while clearing their fields, and realized that the stones could be used to create fences around their property to document their property line and to keep cattle and other animals out of their gardens. This is the original farmhouse from 1799. We couldn't enter the house, but we could look through the open doors. This was the wood shop. This was the blacksmith shop. A large barn has been erected on the property, but the farm manager said the barn is not historically accurate. The barn was built to be used for teaching classes and hosting gatherings. Here are some of the items stored in the barn. Before leaving Colt State Park, I decided to put the drone up in the air for a few minutes and look at some of the sailboats on Narragansett Bay. Well, this does it for our week in Rhode Island, the 41st state that Carol and I have visited together. We will be leaving Thursday for Massachusetts. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and as always, feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching!